I'm like, what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? Live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given as a gift. If I'm a living, I'm a live at the death. So what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? And live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given as a gift. If I'm a living, I'm a live at the death. Yeah.
Excited to be here. Good to see some familiar faces. Always fun to be back in Vancouver. Today my topic is move fast and break things. Kind of before we get into that, kind of what does that mean to me? I think it just means you're not overthinking. I think overthinking is a huge enemy in this business, and for me, I've overthinked so many things in my life, and when I finally came into FFL, I decided I wanted to get a quick start. I wanted to cut the learning curve as quickly as possible, and I knew if I could cut the learning curve by not overthinking, then I'd be able to find success fast, because based on my circumstance, I needed to find success fast. So I've been here in FFL for just under 2 years. It's been an incredible experience so far. My background is in direct sales and network marketing. I did that for about 10 years and built, some pretty big sales teams in the past. Different circumstances had those things taken away from me. I've also been a traditional business owner as a digital marketing, advertising agency guy. I was an operations guy, did that for a while, and dealt with some different hardship, different partnership issues. We decided to shut that company down, and most recently, before I came to FFL, I was actually a staff member for Grady Polson. I was his marketing and recognition guy, and you make one too many recognition images of people helping families, and eventually you just kind of pop and you're like, okay, I have to do this. So that's kind of how I got here, and definitely happy to be here. So today I think the biggest thing I want to talk about is what we call the landmines of success for a new agent. Like, what are the things that we've done that we can help you avoid? We want to help you avoid those landmines so that you can find success faster. So we're going to go through, I think I have 7 points, just because 7's a good number. But the number one landmine of success for a new agent, I think, is there's just no sense of urgency. I think it's fair to say, and I might be making this statistic up, but I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me, that probably 80 to 90% of agents are going to quit in their first 60 days if they don't make any money. It's fair enough to say. And I think the main reason why people do quit is because they don't have that sense of urgency. When I first got started, I got through my class in 6 days. Okay? So sense of urgency. I wanted to get that done as quickly as possible, because if you just studied for class, you're currently studying for class, you understand that class is not like reading the Harry Potter book. It's like reading the law textbook. It's not really a lot of fun to do. You're reading a lot of definitions and things not to do. And then you come into the insurance business and you actually learn how to sell insurance, how to help families, and you learn, it's a lot of fun. But I wanted to get through all of that boring stuff. And when I say boring, it teaches us how to not do illegal things. So it's not, it's very important. So for me, I wanted to get through that as quickly as possible. So class, contracting. Some people sit in contracting for a month because they, don't understand how to press a couple of buttons. It's not that complicated. So getting from class to contracting to buying your leads to having your first dial day, people just don't get through that process fast enough. And I think they try to do what's called getting ready to get ready. They're just preparing and preparing. They're over-preparing. They're overthinking. They get what's called analysis paralysis. And overthinking is just going to be the enemy of everything. There's this quote that I heard that it's a good plan violently executed is better than a perfect plan any day. I'd rather you just violently execute the good plan than try to come up with the perfect plan. So number one is going to be sense of urgency. Number two, they don't plug into the system, and they kind of lack communication with their manager early on. Okay, and you can definitely figure this whole thing out by yourself. There's plenty of people in FFL, plenty of people in the insurance industry that have been able to figure out insurance on their own. But we talked about in the beginning, cutting that learning curve in half. You can cut that learning curve in half by keeping communication with your manager. And it's not because your manager, they know everything and they're the best person in the world and you have to, bow down to them and their knowledge. It's not that at all. It's just they've been doing this a little bit longer, and they can help you avoid a bunch of those, mistakes, these landmines that we're talking about. So, people, they struggle to plug into different groups. They struggle to plug into their team calls. They don't plug into the boot camps. They try to figure it all on their own. And they never call their manager for feedback. So Matt talked about not calling your manager in the home. Well, when you have this relationship with your manager where you're calling them in the home, where you're calling them when something didn't go right, you can get feedback quickly. And when you get feedback quickly, you can get better quickly. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're not plugging in, they're not communicating early on, is they try to self-diagnose why they're not finding success. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. We talk about how we have the doctor-patient relationship with clients where, I'm the doctor, you're the patient, and I'm going to prescribe you the solution. Same exact thing can be said for you and your manager. I kind of look at me coming into this business as a new agent and trying to self-diagnose why people aren't booking appointments with me is like me going on Google and going on WebMD to try to figure out why am I sick. Versus I can talk to the doctor and I can get a professional recommendation. They can tell me exactly what's going on. So trying to self-diagnose your success when you can have a manager tell you what's going on and why you're dialing, why your dialing's not working in 5 seconds. They can listen to you go through, hey, don't pause there. Hey, if you just didn't voice inflect there, they probably keep going. Hey, you're asking yes or no questions, ask yes or yes questions. So somebody who's done it thousands and thousands of times before you, they can diagnose you, or you can sit there and keep WebMDing yourself trying to figure out what's wrong with you, or your manager can tell you in 5 minutes. So that's number 2. Number 3 is they just have no discipline on dial day. Dial day is probably the most important thing in this business. And I think a lot of agents, they also have reluctance to come to an office or to get on a live dial team. So if you are in the Vancouver area and you guys aren't going to the Vancouver office and dialing live, or if you're not in the Vancouver area, you're traveling from somewhere else, almost every single major team in FFL has a live dial team. And I think new agents, they're afraid to unmute their phone. They're afraid to dial in front of people. They're afraid to look stupid. And you have to get over that if you want to get good at this business. On the other side of not being disciplined on dial day, it's not just unmuting, because we can go back to the feedback thing. It's they're not tracking their data. So I'm a very data-driven guy, and especially when I'm a manager and I'm trying to coach new agents, I need to know what's the data. I need to know what's actually going on if I look at your dial tracker. So when you dial alone and you don't track your data, because if you're dialing with people and we're listening, we can say, here's what you're doing wrong. Let's say you do dial alone, but you do a really good job at tracking your data. If you show me your dial tracker, I can diagnose, as the doctor, what you're doing wrong without even hearing you dial. If I see that nobody's answering the phone and you've dialed 900 times, your number probably got marked as spam. That's easy. Easy fix, we'll get you another phone number. You're not going to get marked as spam. Keep on switching out phone numbers until you get people to answer. Okay, people are answering, but you're not booking any appointments. Okay, well, where are they hanging up? Are they hanging up in the middle, the beginning, or the end? Because at that point, we can figure out what you need to work on in your phone script. Or you're booking 16 appointments, but you're only sitting with 3. Well, we need to work on your tie downs. We need to work on the things that are preventing no-shows. So if you track your data, a good manager can help you figure out what you're doing wrong on the phones, even without hearing you dial. So just no discipline on dial day for a new agent, that's one of the biggest landmines, because sitting down in one place, just getting the dials done, if you don't have appointments, you don't have a business. So dialing, I'll come back to that at the end, because I do believe that even though, it's just a random point here in my presentation, it's the most important point, because if you don't have discipline on dial day, you do not have a business. Number 4 is going to be inconsistency with leads. So inconsistency in lead buying, meaning how many times do you buy per week? Maybe this week I buy once, next week I buy twice, this next time I buy once every 2 weeks. And also inconsistency in spend. This time I'll spend 200, this time I'll spend 800, this time I'll spend 1,000, this time I'll spend 100. But inconsistency with leads. I buy leads every single dial day. That's just me personally. I want more opportunities to talk to people. And I was talking with Bobby before this, and it was, if you guys have a list of 100 names and numbers, and you cannot help one family, like, this is the wrong industry for you, unfortunately. Commission-based sales is the wrong industry for you if you can't help one family out of 100, because these people are raising their hands. These aren't 100 random names and numbers we're pulling out of the yellow pages. These are 100 people who've raised their hand already looking for life insurance. So if you can't help 1 out of 100, this isn't going to be the right fit for you. So we have to have consistency in our lead buying. Number 5, and I think this is huge, new agents very often are a bad steward of their commissions. A really bad steward of their commissions. I've been a bad steward of my commissions in previous businesses. In 2017, I filed bankruptcy. I had my BMW repossessed. I had everything taken away from me. So trust me, I understand what being a bad steward of your commissions is. I've had the IRS sending all those threatening letters, and I've been there. Trust me, you do not want to mess with them. Thankfully, FFL you know, we're square, everything's paid off, I'm good to go. But trust me, you want to be a good steward of your commissions. I didn't save for taxes. I didn't do any of that. So I learned that very early on. I was never going to do that again. For me, it's easy when I came to FFL to be a good steward of my commissions because I've lived the life of what it's like for 5 years trying to clean up what it was like being a bad steward of my commission. So it was easy for me, but a lot of you guys are coming here for the first time, and this is your first time ever being in business for yourself. So you make mistakes that every entrepreneur makes. So I want to help hopefully clear that for you guys. So make sure that you're being a good steward of the commissions that you have coming in. So what does that look like? New agents, they don't reinvest back into leads. That's the #1 mistake that people make. So if I go and I spend $1,000 on leads and I help 7 families, why would I not take $1,000 out of that and reinvest back into leads? Jordan Lowry, board member about to be integrity partner here, he taught me really early on, you want to play with house money. What does that mean? So I invested $1,500 into leads when I first got started, and that is the only investment of my own money I've ever made into this business. Ever. And it's funny because people, they want to talk to me about stocks and crypto and all these different things, and I'm like, guys, FFL is my Bitcoin because $1,500 turned into this business, and you can't even compare that to anything else. So for me, I look at it as I spent $1,500, I went out and helped a handful of families, I immediately reinvested that money back into it, and I've done that consistently every single week since I got started. And from that point, I haven't had to reinvest any of my own money again because I'm using the business's money. I'm playing with house money. So if I go to the casino and blackjack's my game, if I like to play, and I have $100 and I win $100, what do I do with the original $100? I shove it back in my pocket, and that's not coming out because I made my money back, and now for the rest of the time that I'm there, I'm going to play with house money. And that's how I built my entire business here. So being a bad steward of your commissions is not reinvesting back into leads. I think the other thing is people come in here and they maybe have a little bit of credit card debt, they maybe have some bills they're behind on, and the first thing they do is they take all their commissions and they pay off everything that they owe. Why would you not just keep on rocking some of those payments for a little bit until you figure out this business and pay that off a little bit later after you've proven yourself as a producer here, rather than paying all of that off and not having money to reinvest back into leads. The other thing is you make more money in a week than you've ever made in a month, and you take some time off. Everybody does it. Grady calls it the Disneyland effect, where it's like I make more money in a week than I've ever made in a month, so I go to Disneyland, and I take 3 weeks off, and then what happens? 4 policies fall off the books, I need to spend all the money, and now I need to buy leads again, and now I'm sitting here with some chargebacks and no money for leads, and I'm in a worse position when I first started. That makes no sense. So don't be that person who takes a bunch of time off when you get started. Head down for as long as possible before you look up. And then the other thing is being a bad steward of your commissions is playing what I call carrier roulette. Okay? Carrier roulette is I write some business with Americo, some falls off, I have a chargeback. So rather than continuing to write with Americo, you know, your manager says, hey, this is the proper product to put it in. You go, I'm going to go write with Mutual of Omaha. Then you get some debt with Mutual of Omaha, and you say, okay, well, instead of writing any business with Americo or Mutual of Omaha, I'm going to write with John Hancock. And instead of writing with John Hancock, now I'm going to write with Transamerica and AIG. Whereas if you just place the clients in the products that they should be placed in, it's all going to work itself out. 20 to 30% of everything that you write is going to fall off the books no matter what. You just have to be aware of that. I've woken up with $10,000, $15,000 in chargebacks before. You go to work, it can be gone in a couple days. So you can't worry about that, and you cannot play carrier roulette. Write a couple main carriers, write the best ones for the client, and it'll all work itself out. Number 6 is a lack of resourcefulness. This is like a big word that we talk about within our business is resourcefulness. People give up way too easily in the home. They go, the person says, well, I don't know my routing number. Okay, well, have a good day. Well, hey, there's no service here. Do you guys have Wi-Fi? I don't know what the Wi-Fi password is. I can't even tell you how many times I have crawled through a hoarder's back room to find the Wi-Fi code behind the spider webs, and the times that I have came out smelling like cat pee because of it. The time where I've helped them search through all of their bank documents, everything that they have, to help them find that routing and account number. You have somebody that's willing to buy, and you have this little thing that's holding it back from going through. Hey, there's no service. I've driven down the road to go run the prescription check, driven back, had them sign again, driven back out to submit the application, then driven back to go ahead and get the application taken care of. It's a lack of resourcefulness and just a willingness to try to help that client. another side of resourcefulness is going to be you're looking for, little things that you could find on your own. You're asking your manager, hey, where do I find the quote tool? Where do I find this? Where do I find that? And it's all available for you if you just actually follow the resources. So I kind of play a joke on some of my agents. There's this website called letmegooglethatforyou.com. And what you do is there's something that they could Google themselves. You go to letmegooglethatforyou.com and I type it in. Then it creates a short link and I send it to them. Then it sends them to Google and it types the question into Google for them. Then it says, was that so hard? Couldn't you have Googled that yourself? So I try to teach people how to be resourceful. And then lastly, the major mistake people make is they don't treat this like a business. They treat it like a hobby. I've heard Zach Tardowski say this a bunch of times. You have people who come here, they want to make doctor money, lawyer money, engineer money, and they want to work 30 hours a week. Do you realize how many years those people go to school? Do you realize how many years those people work to make that kind of money? And people want to come here in insurance, and they want to make the money like a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, and they want to put in part-time fast food hours rather than put in engineer hours, doctor hours, lawyer hours. You have to treat it like a business. How could you possibly expect to create that kind of income without putting in those kind of hours? So last thing I'll say, and I kind of prefaced this at the beginning, is just the number one most important thing for a new agent, it's mastering the phones. If you're not able to master the phones, you will be out of this business in 60 days. I promise you that. If you're not willing to unmute, if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, you'll be out of this business in 60 days because you haven't figured it out. So I would recommend that you just have 1 or 2 really uncomfortable dial days where you unmute or get in front of somebody. I'm not talking about a year of uncomfortable dial days. I'm just saying like 2 really uncomfortable dial days where you have somebody give you feedback, and you will become exponentially better from doing that.